Greetings, fellow Egyptologists. My name is Javan Rodriguez Lopez. I'm an independent researcher from the Group for the Study and Promotion of Egyptology in Cuba and professor at the University of Holguin. Over 800 kilometers from Havana, in a small country town named Baguanos, I salute you and thank you all for the opportunity to present at the Current Research in Egyptology conference. I am proposing an independent project entitled Synoptic Edition of Book of the Dead Spell Sources from the 21st Dynasty. The goal behind the project is providing the Egyptological community with edited and digitalized Book of the Dead spell sources from the end of the New Kingdom and the beginning of the Third Intermediate Period, particularly the 21st Dynasty. This project was launched in 2022 without institutional support, yet we are open to collaboration from interested researchers and institutions worldwide. Even when we have in Cuba the most important Egyptian collection in all Latin America, held at the National Museum of Fine Arts in Havana, with over 100 ancient Egyptian artifacts, there is no institutional interest in research in the field, and as a result, no domestic support of any kind beyond the voluntary involvement of the members from the Group for the Study and Promotion of Egyptology. So let's collaborate. An important number of Egyptian funerary papyri have been published since the late 19th century, and growing particularly within the last 2 decades favored by enhanced methodological approaches in the Book of the Dead studies area. To that endeavor have added up material, particularly, among others, the series Handschriften des Altägyptischen Totenbuches, born from the Totenbuchtexte at Bonn University, with 15 sources published so far, Totenbuchtexte, with 12 volumes published to date, comprising 87 spells, produced there at the University of Basel within the project Synoptische Testausgabe nach Quellen des Neuen Reiches, and Book of the Dead Saite through Ptolemaic period, having 10 volumes published, including 144 spells, yet a large number of papyri from the Third Intermediate Period, and particularly the 21st Dynasty, which include rare spells and vignettes, remain unpublished. The current project aims partly to cover this gap by means of a synoptic study of selected Book of the Dead spells from 21st Dynasty sources. The goal is to better understand variability within the funerary compositions and to shed light on key evidence regarding their transmission and editorial practices from the end of the New Kingdom to the beginnings of the Third Intermediate Period. The incentive to this new research endeavor comes from a recently finished project, the Book of the Dead Papyrus Havana edition, published in 2021 in the series Handschriften des Altägyptischen Totenbuches by Harasabis Publishers, and whose editorial peculiarities turn the attention into this direction. Yet this variation is within the scope of the studies on later traditions of ancient Egyptian funerary religion, the Book of the Dead particularly. The rarities of Papyrus Havana, which include novel vignettes and unmatched spell sequence, and unusual editorial practices like the mingling of spell fragments from different sources within single spells, among other peculiarities, open new questions yet to be resolved, which I plan to have a final word on by the end of this new research undertaking. A broader scope project on Book of the Dead sources from the New Kingdom is in progress by Professors Gunther Lapp and Barbara Löscher in the University of Basel, which I have mentioned earlier. Our project will revisit Ramesside sources as a starting point to compare and trace the origins of 21st Dynasty versions of selected spells, a fair reason for collaboration among both projects, which I am now openly and respectfully welcoming. I really look forward to it. The project includes a selection of spells and their sources. The spell selection criteria are based on the mingled fragments detected in Papyrus Havana. The spells are clustered according to their theme and the inner logic of the amalgamation, which always match. The process of selection of the sources is aided by the Totenbuch project database. For the moment, only sources on papyrus from the Theban area, like Papyrus Havana, are included, whether from the 21st Dynasty, to be incorporated in the Synoptic edition, or the Ramesside period, in order to trace the spell transmission. The source with more matches in the spell list should make the final selection to include in the Synoptic edition. Yet, less represented sources could also contain valuable information on editorial practice, a fact that will be taken into account once all the material is successfully downloaded from the database and properly catalogued. After the selection of sources for each spell, the process of digital transliteration to manual decodage using JSEG editor and Unicode characters using a self-developed PHP batch converter continues, along with the transcription, bilingual translation into English and Spanish, and philological commentary, following the methodological guidelines established in the HAT and TBT series. The visual transcript of each source will be produced in a tabular form using Visual Glyph Plus software developed by Gunter Lab, who kindly licensed it for the project's use, and I deeply appreciate. For the moment, the spells and tentative sources were selected, and the acquisition of digital material from the online database is in progress. Not finished yet because of the lack of a stable and affordable internet connection, the result of an IT infrastructure not fully developed due to an economic embargo imposed to the island by the United States government for 6 decades already. The first cognates for spell 194 are already transcribed, waiting for its visual digital rendition as soon as the time and adequate technical conditions are available to resume the work, along with the rest of spells yet to be edited. The asynchronous nature of this video rendering and its presentation in this conference gives a margin of time for further developments in the project tasks, which can be announced following this work session. Arriving at this point of the presentation, one might wonder, which are the envisaged outputs of the project? First, all the digital transcriptions in JSEG files and Unicode characters will be made available in open access in a regular basis as each spell source is worked out through the online platform GitHub. And once the project is finished, the whole set of files will be bundled and uploaded to Zenodo for the benefit of other projects within the Egyptological community and the general public. Collaboration with ORAIC project, Open Richly Annotated Egyptian Corpus, is in progress. Also, parallel lines of research will produce journal articles and other publications, which include the following: 21st Dynasty Rare Spells and Vignettes, pointed out by Professor Anders Nivinsky, and mouth-opening and cleansing spells underpinnings and innovations up to the 21st Dynasty, among others that will spring throughout the hermeneutic process. And last, the Synoptic edition will be prepared as a book to be temptingly published within the Studien zur Altägyptischen Totenbuch or Totenbuchtexte series. However, the project faces some practical challenges and limitations that should be addressed in order to advance in achieving its goals. Apart from the limited internet connection we suffer in Cuba, there are still some areas where international collaboration would be very significant and welcomed. For the reasons already mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we have no access to a specialized Egyptological library in Cuba, not to mention foreign book retailers, and as such, in great extent to the required bibliography, including the publications of papyri sources and other material like commercial journal articles and books connected to the object of scrutiny, needed for the commitment of the project tasks. In previous research endeavors, I was lucky to have the collaboration of a bunch of colleagues abroad, to whom I will be always in debt, that granted me access to rare bibliographic sources, and I hope to be able to count with some of you in the near future. Also, among the selected material, there are hieratic sources, for which I am still lack of experience in recognizing the whole set of the script's handwritten variants and idiosyncrasies. I would benefit from a tutor during my process of training with these sources, another reason for my call to joining new scholars into this research project. Despite of all the shortcomings the project has faced so far and is yet to experience, I am fully committed and confident to arrive to the end with the best of results possible, hopefully with the external contribution of other colleagues. Thank you all for your attention. I will be happy to take any questions or suggestions you have and hopefully listen to proposals for collaboration by the end of this session. Offline contacts are also welcomed. Good afternoon and a productive conference.